Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Rodan. And today, as you can see, I'm still continuing my Disney movie marathon where I'll be talking about the movies, shows, what have you guys. Something that's related to Disney, chances are I will talk about it, obviously. So I just figured I'll just speak about these certain series of films, specifically the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which I know is a hot topic ever since Star Wars The Force Awakens. Yeah, these films had become pretty controversial in a lot of ways, and that's kind of the point of the video. It's just me trying to discuss this controversies. Why is this a thing? I don't even know. Somehow Disney ruined Star Wars, which in itself is a ridiculous notion. They're nowhere near that bad. Are they perfect? No, but I still enjoy them nonetheless. So just here countering their well, when I say there, I mean more than one. I'm speaking more than one person. So with that out of the way, let's just get into it, shall we? Because there's going to be quite a bit to discuss here. And I thank anybody for tuning in right away because yes, this is going to be a fairly lengthy video again, as these types of videos I tend to do be pretty long, not always, but still. With that being said, here we go, folks. For the first part I'm going to be talking about.
Michael says, "Hey Ben, serious question. What would it take to turn the Star Wars franchise around for you with the upcoming rise of Skywalker film?" It was all a dream. It was all a dream. Would be the best possible solution. I think that we probably at this point have to redo all of it.
Yeah, see what I mean with the dumbassery? These films were nowhere near that bad, like at all. It's because those gay folks in there, and yes, he has a grudge against the LGBT plus community. Well, case in point, here you go.
Children, and that would be man, women, baby. Right. So that is the answer to the question. As far as big government versus small government, first of all, I think that dichotomy is sometimes too rough because I want big government when it comes to hardcore policing in crime-ridden areas. Is that big government? It's not libertarian.
What the hell are you even talking about? None of that made any sense. Like at all.
Right? I want the government to be able to make sure that crime does not rise in my area. That's not a small government policy. So I think that
Again, what are you talking about? What does that have to do with gay marriage? What?
the question is correct use of government versus non-correct use of government. But if you're going to make a small, big government dichotomy, the question really should be whether the government should be involved in marriage at all. Now, when I say that gay marriage, I don't think that the government should subsidize.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What does any of that have to do with anything? Anyway,
It turns out that killing off all of your childhood heroes and making them losers was a very bad idea. And there's this line in The Last Jedi where Kylo Ren turns to Rey and says, "Why can't we just erase all of the past and then we'll..."
or how about you just leave people alone? How about that? Or that required too much effort for you to do. If you don't want to watch these Star Wars films, but don't watch them. It's just simple as that. Watch something else. No one is making you watch these movies. No one.
You and me. And it's a really interesting moment. And Rey's like, "No, we can't do that. We can't do that." Okay, the problem is that Disney is actually Kylo Ren. So they've taken all the nostalgia that you had for your childhood watching the Star Wars movies, and then they have killed off every one of those characters one by one to benefit characters who are significantly less interesting on every possible level.
And what is that based upon? How does how is making a representation in these films make it less interesting? What? That sounds really bigoted. Anything about you're not basing this on anything, like at all.
It's terrible. I mean, I blame J.J. Abrams. I think this all started. I'm not going to blame Ryan Johnson as the true creator of the Star Wars collapse. J.J. Abrams is a derivative B movie director, and he directed the
Again, you're not bringing anything up. You just shit on these movies just to shit on them. It's a nothing sandwich. Oh yeah, what about the fact that Disney is supposedly supporting pedophilia? Wouldn't you just yeah, you actually brought that up quite a while ago. Yet you still don't watch these movies anyway. So wouldn't you technically be supporting that? I mean, it's a lie, but it just seems like a contradiction. Is all I'm saying. This is so stupid, really stupid.
he directed episode, what was it, 7? He directed episode 7 with all of the creativity of a plagiarist.
What do you mean plagiarized? Oh, right, right. Because he has diversity. That's something that makes it bad. Yeah, this is gonna be a common thing in the entire video, by the way. So yeah, a lot of these fans are toxic, of course, like him, and they act as if that the original trilogy is the end all be all for all filmmaking cinematic history. Acting as if is basically the second coming of Christ, pretty much. Putting this on such a high pedestal, like it can't be touched. No other movie or franchise can ever be in the same level of those. And don't get me wrong, if you like these movies, that's fine. I'm not getting mad at you for enjoying these films. That's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. You can like whatever you want. It's a free country after all. And yes, as bad as terrible as the prequel trilogy was, yes, they were trying to continue this whole political thing and whatnot. And that's the thing a lot of people don't seem to understand. It was political from the very beginning. Even if they want to argue that it should be more about politics, the characters themselves shouldn't be just about politics and nothing more. Of course, there should be more to the characters than their political alignment. Obviously, there should be more to them than their gender. There should be more to them than their sexual orientation. Yada yada yada. There should be more to them than their skin color. There should be more to them than the country that they originated from. Of course, being gay, being straight, being whatever, there should be more to the character than just that. Obviously, even if they would recognize that it was political from the get-go, they would put up that kind of argument. Oh, being political shouldn't be the entire identity. No kidding. So another thing is that this is the sequel trilogy, as flawed as it is. I still enjoyed it, and they were just continuing the whole idea that what they were trying to do from the very beginning. Well, I'm saying that it was always diverse from the very beginning. It was political from the very beginning, and Disney was political from the very beginning. And now it bothers you. Now it's a nuisance to you. This makes no sense, like at all. What are you talking about?
Hey, look, a Death Star. I'm shocked. Hey, look, it's a guy who's he's just basically Darth Vader. That's amazing. But he created a great sin. The great sin, as I've said before, is that he took Han Solo, who was the coolest character in the original Star Wars.
Holy hell, this guy does not understand Star Wars, yet he acts like it. He obsessed with the old movies. As far as he's concerned, it's just the old movies and that's it. And this is so gaslighting. It's so much gaslighting here. This entire thing is gaslighting.
Turned him into a loser divorced dad who wanders around the universe in his Cadillac with the fuzzy dice and his best friend smoking weed, and then shows up only to be killed by his son at the behest of his wife he hasn't seen in 20 years for the dumbest possible reason. At that point, I was like, out. Sorry, I'm out. So, I think that what would it take to
Again, what are you talking about? The Star Wars films trying to teach people, the viewers, to not be a bigot. Yet you're being a bigot. That's a contradiction.
make this happen? Well, what would take to honestly, what would take to make this more interesting and creative would be for there to be a sort of mixture of the light and dark side. There's been talk about this, that maybe Rey unifies the light and the dark, and that was sort of the move that Kylo Ren was making in the last movie. That would have been interesting. They were actually, honestly, like 15 seconds away from making that movie really fascinating, and that was Kylo Ren and Rey joining forces.
Oh no, Kylo Ren and Rey joining forces. That somehow makes it a bad movie because, up my ass and around the corner, I guess. You're not explaining nothing. Again, you have not explained anything.
Right? That would have been fascinating. And then the tension between them. Like what they really should have done is they should have allowed Rey to move with Kylo Ren. And then they should have had the original Star Wars characters, because at that point, Luke is still alive. They should have had the original Star Wars characters then fighting against the newbies. Right? That would have been fascinating and really counterintuitive because, honestly, let's be real about this. Who cares about Kylo Ren and Rey?
Oh my god, what are you talking about? I keep asking that. Anyway, but okay, they teamed up to fight the other people. Okay, how's that bad? What makes that bad? Why is this bad? How? How? How is that bad? You, people teaming up, switching sides or whatever, that has happened quite a few times in expanded lore. This is nothing new.
Like, just your sympathies don't lie with them. Your sympathies were always with the original characters because you have 40 years of nostalgia for those characters. Stupid, stupid, Disney, stupid. Okay, so here's my proposal. My proposal is we pretend that these movies never happened. It was all a dream.
Again, with the gaslighting, this entire, I keep saying that, it's just gaslighting, that's what this is. Again, who is making you watch these movies? You went to see these movies on your own free will. No one made you. There's no lesbian, there's no gay person, there's no trans person that got a gun pointing to the back of your head and made you watch these movies. If you don't want to watch them, fine. Then don't. No one is making you.
And then we either recast all of the original parts and pick up right where Return of the Jedi left off, with Admiral Thrawn still out there trying to reunite the fragments of the Empire. Or we fast forward 70 years, everybody's dead, there are statues of them in the Great Hall, and you just move on with whatever the universe is. Instead, they decided to have the baby, and you ended up with the worst of all possible scenarios.
Well, okay, that went absolutely nowhere. Well, someone around here is stuck in the past. Stuck in the past. Stuck in the past. Stuck in the past. Why are you acting like the people who work at Disney and the LGBT plus community? Why are you acting like they're a bunch of criminals? They're not. You treat them like they're a bunch of bad people. Anyway, for the next video, I want to bring up a good moment here. It's somebody talking about how Star Wars fans are being fanatical or whatever. So here we go, I guess.
I was at the Hollywood Bowl. Had a wonderful time. I thank Josh Kerr for bringing us and letting us share his seats. And they did a tribute to John Williams, who conducts the LA Philharmonic and who wrote so many great soundtracks. He wrote Star Wars. That's the big one, is Star Wars. I think he also did E.T. So everybody shows up with these lightsabers. Right? They wave the lightsaber.
Yeah, he does go on to say that, he brings up the compliments for the music and whatnot and explains, like a little disclaimer here, he's not trying to attack the fan base, even though he's criticizing, I guess. So, and that's the thing, you could criticize a fan base even though you like the movies, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, really. And like I said in my previous videos, nobody is above criticism, is all I'm saying. As long as it's constructive, sure, why not? It's perfectly fine. Well, anyway.
I am touched by the fact that I know that Star Wars started out as a sort of tribute to the old Flash Gordon films. George Lucas loved these Flash Gordon films. They all started.
Yeah, pretty much what it's getting at. The Star Wars films do owe quite a bit of thanks to the really low budget sci-fi movies from the past that I spoke about before. Yeah, it was heavily influenced by Flash Gordon to name one of several, I guess. Also by the Japanese culture, actual historical stuff actually played in as an influence as well. Like World War II, for example, played as an influence kind of a thing in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, the Star Wars films got a lot of inspiration from other films and history as well, which is fun. Nothing wrong with that.
Famous book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which talks about the meaning of the kind of monomyth, what James Joyce called the monomyth, the one myth that all myths sort of partake of. And Lucas incorporated those ideas into Star Wars, I believe.
Pretty much continuing to explain that George Lucas had taken some inspiration from other media and of course from real life, kind of what happened with the Confederate Army, and gotta get rid of the slavery and whatnot, stuff that had actually occurred in real life, and the revolution, some sort of thing like that, of course, obviously. So the French Revolution, that's one thing for sure. That can actually play as a part in some heavily influenced kind of a thing in this grand scheme of things. And that's fine. I mean, okay, George Lucas was not the only one that did this kind of a thing, but this goes on to say that in real life and other films that definitely or other cultures that played an influence in this kind of a thing.
In a new and fresh and completely revolutionary way into the stories of Christianity, which, as C.S. Lewis said, was the myth that really happened, the myth that was actual reality. And what's sad to me is that there are not enough artists who can incorporate those ideas into stories that are adult and complex.
And that's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. I don't mind complex storytelling, which is why I feel like it was really cringe that a lot of people would say that Star Wars is just for kids. Kids. No, no, that's a complete lie.
The only movie I can think of that actually talks about real heroism uh, in a complex and deep and human way recently that was a great movie was American Sniper.
Yeah, I've not seen that movie, American Sniper, right? Yeah, I've not seen that film at all, folks. I tend to watch like a lot of the low budget stuff. Really, that's more my cup of tea. So I can't really give an opinion on that. But he still has a point, though. He still has a very good point when it comes to displaying some sort of storytelling.
It doesn't make you perfect, and it doesn't make you anything except a hero. And that's why American Sniper is such a good film. And that's why I'm sort of sometimes sad when I see Star Wars fans that they have nothing to move on to, that even as they grow older and then grow old, they still cling to what is essentially a fantasy film.
Yeah, there's also the toxic nostalgia. Yeah, there's that nasty word I keep saying. Nostalgia. Jesus. I don't like nostalgia. But yeah, a lot of people are just stuck in the past, is what I feel, folks. But anyway, go on.
That's not an attack on them or on the film. It's simply to say that with that, we also need a deeper version of the heroic story that I think is really lacking from American culture, which is why so many films are about superheroes and so few films are any good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to completely disagree with him on that because comic books can be deep, complex. Like if you're saying with the other movies, yeah, in the comic books that has happened before, and in the films. I mean, okay, it kind of depends which movie you're talking about, but yes, these kinds of storytelling can actually do the same exact thing, like he was saying a moment ago. Yeah, they can deliver the same kind of impact on culture and whatnot, and show what it means to be a hero or heroine. So it just seems like he contradicted himself right there, as I'm saying. And the thing is that when you think about it, okay, something I brought up quite a few times before it, but in the 52 series of Batgirl, the thing is that, yeah, it introduced a trans character. Yeah, usually trans characters are not a part of the mainstream comics. They have been in comics before, but usually not in mainstream. So yeah, about that. So he's wrong about that.
So anyway, those were just my reactions to listening to wonderful music, wonderful evening at the Hollywood Bowl that I thoroughly enjoyed. But it does remind me of the need for something that's missing in American culture, which is
Yeah, there's films like North by Northwest, Psycho, the Godfather trilogy, Goodfellas, stuff like this. Vertigo. Yeah, in some ways, yeah, I can kind of see what he means by that because a lot of the great movies are done a while back. Even Citizen Kane. Did we ever get another Citizen Kane in recent years? I don't think so. Not really. And there's still some great movies that came in modern times. Sure, it just feels like it's not as many. Okay, for the last guy I'm talking about, he's a real moron. Oh boy, he's. Anyway, let's just get into it because it's not gonna make any sense anyway, even if I describe it to you right now. So let's get into it, I guess. Whatever.
Some of you are going to respond and say, are you sure that's what the writers intended?
I'm sure that you're already gonna make up some bullshit trying to deflect any criticism towards you because I'm pretty sure that you had this conversation with other people prior. Is that what happened? And you didn't like the response that you received, of course. And I'm pretty sure just like a lot of other people that want to talk shit about Star Wars or whatever Disney has done, or any movie for that matter, you put them taking things out of context. What has happened before? And how are you going to be any different from that? Yeah, because you're not. That's what I'm asking. You're not going to be any different from what they had done.
And the only people who say that are people who aren't themselves creative writers. I actually started out, I wrote my first short story when I was 6, wrote my first novel when I was 11, and have written a lot of fiction, about 30 plays, half a dozen novels, and so on, lots of poetry.
And so what? That doesn't mean your point of view is complete bullshit. How is writing a good, decent amount of literature somehow preventing you from bullshitting? That doesn't make any sense.
So Luke Skywalker has checked out of society. Huh. Isn't that interesting? He's a white male who's checked out of society. And we see this all over the place with white males, right? I mean, that they're not happy. Neither is Luke Skywalker happy. He's got this bitter, grizzled, half-homeless kind of determination to survive another day, but for no particular purpose other than to watch the slow extinguishing of his own possibilities. And
What are you talking about? Luke Skywalker, him being a bit of a grump or whatever, like he was in The Last Jedi, that was a thing in the expanded universe, in the comics, books, and so forth. Again, this is nothing new. It's been done before. Him getting older and him getting bitter and yada yada yada. Him being like this was already done in the expanded universe. What are you talking about here? Okay.
Life. Destined to die on an abandoned, desolate rock in the middle of nowhere, no one even to bury his body. And this is true of a lot of white males, right? They're heavily in debt from terrible educations. They're living at home. There are endless diversity mandates in society, which means it's very, very hard for a white male to get a job.
Yeah, it's quite obvious that it bothers him that these movies will include a diverse cast of characters. Even though, like I said earlier, it was already there from the very beginning, from the very start. But it just seems kind of odd that you're now speaking against it right now. You didn't do it then, you didn't do it with the original trilogy, and you didn't do it with the sequel trilogy. But now with the sequel trilogy, now it bothers you? Yeah, he's just mad at the fact that there's a female lead in all three movies. Even though, like I literally just said, Princess Leia, there's always been a female lead in these films. So again, why do you now take an issue with this? Not then, but now. But now, you're taking an issue with it now. Even though it was already there from the very beginning. I don't get this. It just makes no sense. This is so bizarre. What are you talking about? I don't get any of this. So yes, like I was saying a moment ago, is that the original series of films, the original trilogy, of course, had the characters attempting to fight off this, I guess what you would say, a fascist government, so to speak, and pretty much have the good guy team, as corny as that sounds. I know that sounds really cheesy, but the idea here is that the good guys must, of course, form I guess, reestablish a form of democracy. And because I know that the fact that when Palpatine came into power, he pretty much wanted absolute control. So I guess they want to some sort of retain the power from way back when, before he was even in politics. This kind of thing was discussed in the original films. How is it that you were fine with this kind of attitude then, but now it's an issue? I don't get it. This is bizarre. Yeah, a lot of these people are just all mad because Disney bought the rights and they're making these movies now. When you get down to it, that's all this is. That's all this entire thing is. It's just that, as simple as that sounds, which it is. It is that simple. That's all there is to it. They just don't like the fact that Disney is making Star Wars now. That's literally it. There's no more context than that. That's literally it. Why is it like that, though? I have no idea. Their reasoning is never consistent. It would vary from person to person. Even then, it's still inconsistent among themselves and each other. So it's basically like, oh, I don't like Disney, therefore neither should you. What is this, middle school? I thought you graduated from that like 50 years ago. And you still have that mindset? What? This is so bizarre. It's so weird. Yeah, in one of my previous videos, according to these jackasses, they claim that the theme park up in Florida has gone rogue and is planning to make some sort of nuclear power thing, some weapons, somehow. So, where did that go?
I don't know.
I guess up my ass around the corner. That's where that went. Whatever. Let's just... Oh, Christ.
Which means that white males kind of have to go into entrepreneurship.
What? How did you get that from that? How is this forcing white men to doing that into entrepreneurship? I mean, they can if they want. I'm not going to stop them. That's fine. I'm not going to criticize them for that. Sure, go ahead. If you're a white male and you want to do that, sure, make your own business. Go right ahead. But what does that got to do with anything? What does any of that have to do with anything?
Which has its ups and downs, of course. And there are jobs openly saying you basically, if you're a white male, you have no chance of getting this job. There is, of course, the men going their own way movement, or the MGTOW movement, where men are eschewing relations with women for fear of being preyed upon by a state that favors females.
Princess Leia, Princess Leia, Princess Leia, Princess Leia, Princess Leia, Princess Leia, 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 Princess, Princess, Princess. Did you just forget about that? How she was an important character in the original series of films. So how is putting Rey in these new movies somehow means that it's going to push white men into doing that thing you were mentioning? How does that even make any sense? What does being a man got to do with it? And what does being white have to do with it? What does any of this have to do with anything? What are you talking about?
In the court system, family court system in particular, massive amounts of unemployment. There is, of course, the opioid crisis that is striking white males particularly hard. And white males, for the first time in centuries, are seeing, and this is true of whites as a whole, are seeing the life expectancy decline. The Obi-Wan Kenobi character did die out.
Oh my god, this is nothing. This entire conversation is having is nothing. How did you come up with this? Where is this? Whatever you're talking about, where is it? This is a non-existent problem that you're making up here. It's literally just you're just shitting shit out. You're just shitting this bogus stuff out.
First of all, sort of lived on and became more powerful, but he had the next generation. Whereas Luke Skywalker is dying out and there is no next generation. And that, of course, is the boomers, followed by the kids who aren't having children, the demographic decline among the whites that is happening.
I mean, okay, yes, from the generations like the silent generation, the boomer generation, and generation. Just of course, things can be different. Things do change as they should, for better, for worse. But it does happen. But again, what does any of this have to do with anything? What are you talking about?
In Europe and in North America, whites, I think, are down to about 8% of the world's population, and that 8% is very top-heavy in terms of age. So in terms of childbearing age.
What? They're still going to be producing a lot of kids even nowadays. Sure. Oh my god. I mean, things just have changed, sure. When it comes to childbearing, people would do it differently compared to back then. That is true. But again, what does that have to do with anything? You have not explained anything whatsoever.
White females are like maybe 2% or so of the world's population. There is danger of, a quasi-extinction event in the not too distant future. It's sort of similar to what's going on in Japan, but with diversity and fewer robots. So.
What? How is any of this an indication of anything exactly? You have not provided any evidence whatsoever. It just comes off like you don't want diversity in these movies. Even though these movies were always political ever since the original trilogy. That was already a thing. How did you miss that? I mean, really?
There is no continuing of the line. And this destruction of the history that is occurring in the new Star Wars movie, Kylo Ren actually says it. You have to break with the past, kill it if you have to. And that happens. Luke Skywalker takes the most powerful symbol of the Jedi and just tosses it over his shoulder.
No, the sequel trilogy is not trying to undo the past. Oh, Christ, I'm from a previous generation than you were. I'm from the silent generation because I am over 100 years old. But even I can say that that's not what's going on. 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 And again, that's not what's going on. You just don't like the fact that it's political. And there's diversity. It's just that. You just don't like the fact there's diversity. That's all there is to it.
And that is happening, of course, a lot. The whites are not allowed to have a history to be proud of, not allowed to have in-group preferences. The religion of the West must be burned. And this, of course, you see, like the tree and the Jedi texts get burned down, and it's...
Oh, Christ, what are you talking about? What? I mean, yes, when it comes to the recent generation, the millennials and people who are born in the early 2000s and in the 90s or even the 80s, but in comparison to like maybe I would say in recent years, yes, the church attendance have gone less and less and less. That's true. But again, what does that have to do with Disney? What are you talking about?
It's the end of a lineage. It's the end of a history. It is the end of culture. Now, trade, of course, white skin and red underneath. Well, that's Caucasians, right? White skin and red underneath. And in that,
I'm confused here. Just because they have diversity, that doesn't mean it's anti-white. That doesn't mean they hate white people. You can't fight bigotry with bigotry. Hating white people is no different than hating a Mexican or a Cuban or Chinese or whatever. It's all the same shit. Bigotry is wrong no matter what.
battle, Luke shows up, and it drove me kind of nuts that he was missing the gray in his beard. But then we sort of realized why. So Luke shows up, and then like every weapon in the known universe is aimed at destroying him. This is the hatred directed at white males, and
What hatred towards the white people? Are you talking about the woke culture? Yes, the woke culture hates white people. Sure, that is true. But you can't separate that from these movies. It doesn't have having diversity does not have to be a part of the woke culture. So again, you're just flat out lying. Again,
of course, he's just a projection. He's not actually there. And so the fact that projection is really there, there's a lot of frustration out there in the world. This is why I talk about race and IQ, is that I want people to get along. I want people to understand and to have peace with the way that the world and its cultures are, because there's this incredible frustration out there in the world that other cultures.
as I said a moment ago, nobody should be hating on anybody because of the color of skin. Whether you're black, orange, yellow, pink, blue, whatever, it doesn't matter. Nobody should be hating on anyone. Of course not. That's ridiculous. You can't help it. You can't help to be born with the color that you have. That's just part of life. You're born with that. There's nothing wrong with being a certain color. All colors should be welcome. Absolutely. But you just putting shit out your ass. You're still in the wrong here. Give me a break.
Are just not able to reproduce the former successes of white male culture, of European and North American culture. So there's this immense rage and frustration because race and IQ are not talked about, and it's not really fundamentally possible to reproduce a Jeffersonian democracy in Somalia, because Somalia has an average IQ, what is it, in the high 70s, low 80s, or something like that. I mean, just can't do it.
Oh, sweet merciful Jesus. This guy has no idea what he's talking about. Like at all. Just because you wore some poetry, novels, books, whatever the case may be, it doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. It does not mean that you're smart. I mean, yes, like I said multiple times before, nobody is above criticism. Absolutely not. But that doesn't mean he has a point. Yeah, this has nothing to do with the woke culture. Like at all, like I just said a moment ago.
But this increased diversity means decreased success. In fact, it's just one disaster after another for the rebels. And I'm not really sure if diversity is such a strength, why, now that the Star Wars universe is more diverse, do the rebels keep losing? Well, because there's kind of a truth in that.
Star Wars was always diverse. Star Wars was always about politics. How many times have I said this already? Not just in this video, but in previous videos. Star Wars always had politics. It was always there from the very beginning. How do you not know this? Orlando, he's black, and Princess Leia is a woman, like a feminist kind of thing, and they want to fight the bad guys, and they're just continuing that here. How is that any different from before?
If diversity is such a strength, then why do leftist academics never hire conservatives? Why do communist academics never hire free marketers from the Austrian school? Why do they never hire objectivists? Because they want unity in academia, university, of leftism, of communism. So they recognize, of course, that diversity is in no way a strength, which is why they relentlessly enforce it.
Oh, good Christ almighty. Just because you're a liberal and just because you're a Democrat does not mean you're okay with communism. That's just a stereotype right there. That's a contradiction anyway, because communists don't want diversity. Communists hate diversity. Communists just want specific group to be ruling over everyone. So you just flat out contradicted yourself. I mean, okay, to be somewhat fair, he contradicted himself all over the video. Every sentence he says makes no sense. There's nothing here that makes any sense whatsoever.
In academia, while at the same time relentlessly promoting it outside of academia. If diversity is such a strength of the free market, then why are communists constantly pushing diversity? Well, they push diversity because they know that diversity, like communism, is a failure. I mean, it may take us another couple of years to accept and absorb that and be able to talk about that more openly, but statistically, it's a...
Alright, that's the end of his video. That's the last guy be talking about this. I mean, I could bring up a few other things, I guess, but this video is really long enough as it is. But point being is that he's completely wrong in absolutely everything. Everything he just said there is wrong, of course. Representation does not have to be an evil thing. Does every movie in existence need representation? No. But if it's done correctly, it would be nice. And at the end of the day, what really matters is good storytelling. To be fair, I want to see good storytelling, and this has pretty good storytelling. And like I said before, is a Star Wars sequel trilogy perfect? No, it has flaws. Are there certain things could they improved on? Sure, I can name a few things they can improve on, sure. But that's not what this is really about. He's just angry at the fact that diversity is being represented in a movie. In this case, the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And another thing is that he doesn't seem to realize, well, maybe he is realizing, he's just ignoring it. Yes, there's politics in this movie. Yes, there's politics in it. But that's the thing, like I just said a moment ago, politics was always a part of the Star Wars franchise ever since the very beginning. It was always there. That has not changed whatsoever, like at all. So anyway, that aside, even Walt Disney was a part of politics. Walt Disney had some political stuff going on when he was alive, and he never got to do all that much he wanted when it comes to World War One, really. But yeah, Walt Disney has something to do with politics. That was always a thing. Yeah, between the years of 1941 and 1945, during World War II, Walt Disney was involved in the production of war-themed movies for the U.S. government. Yes, that's a thing. So yeah, the widespread familiarity of Disney's production benefited the U.S. government during the whole pro-war kind of thing that was going on at the time in an effort to increase support, kind of a thing. And that's fine. He's doing what he thought to be the patriotic thing. If anything, he was a patriot. And yes, there was definitely a difference between being a patriot and a Christian nationalist, which a lot of people seem to get it confused with too. But anyway, yeah, this was definitely a thing. Leading up to World War II, Walt Disney Studios was on the verge of bankruptcy. Walt Disney Studios had entered the early 40s, but they've been around a lot sooner than that, actually. But anyway, with the major profits from movies like the original Snow White, it had yeah, the original Snow White, the original Princess movie. Yeah, I'm talking about Princess movie here, folks, which had seen many high revenues, of course. But Walt Disney had the tendency to use all the profits from the released films towards the production of new films. So in 1941, with the release of Fantasia, the original Fantasia, this policy had led to severe amount of loss within the company. Walt Disney spent 4 times more than he has planned budget on the production of Fantasia, which, yeah, was roughly around, if I remember correctly, $2.8 million, I believe. However, Fantasia did not receive the attention Walt Disney had thought it would. So the release of the film was met with low attendance poor reviews at the time. So yeah, this pretty much kicked him in the ass, so to speak, when you think about it. And also the release of the film, yeah, got mixed reviews, like I was saying. Well, mostly poor, really. I mean, yes, it got better reviews over the years, sure, but at the time the reviews weren't particularly great. And but yeah, the thing is that Disney kept losing money during a certain period of time when he was alive. The studio had lost about a good chunk of money. I mean, a lot of money during that period of time. Other movies, like let's say the original Pinocchio, yeah, the animated one, also had failed to bring in profits that Walt Disney, when he was alive, had predicted because of the war. In Europe, that had prevented European moviegoers from seeing the movie. So yes, this definitely brought down the revenue from the foreign countries to the company. And also, by the way, I know the film Frozen, the first one and the second one, became two of the biggest animated films of all time. But the original Frozen film was going to be produced by him. Unfortunately, because of the war, the first Frozen film was delayed for almost 100 years. So he never had the chance to make the Frozen film, like at all. But anyway, yeah, that's how serious this period of time was. Anyway, let me just try to wrap things up, folks, because again, Disney was already in politics even before the company had gone into the whole Star Wars thing. But anyway, yeah, the thing is that, yeah, just with extreme losses in profits and revenue, Walt Disney was unable to keep its large number of employees on payroll, lay off many of its animators, unfortunately. So, yes, this led to like a labor strike of nearly half of the studio's remaining 800 employees in the spring of 1941. The strike went on for 4 weeks, yeah, 4 weeks, until Walt Disney agreed to join a labor union. As Walt Disney handled, these kinds of stuff with the labor union and whatnot. So there was an attempt to, fix certain things, of course, when it comes to costs and whatnot, folks. But anyway, I mean, I could go on and on, but I'm just trying to, uh, Christ. Yeah, I mean, yes, there was this also with Walt Disney Studios entered the winter of 1941, still in financial crisis, and then in 1941 of December, I believe, yeah, after the surprise attack of Pearl Harbor, and when it comes to the Empire of Japan, so yeah, about 500 United States Army troops began the occupation and whatnot. So yeah, there seems to like maybe like a golden opportunity to still keep producing film to support the troops and whatnot. But like I said, I could go on and on, but Disney was involved in politics before, way before, even when he was alive. Same thing with Star Wars. Star Wars took a lot of inspiration from real life events, like World War II, for example. I mean, it was not the only inspiration, but it was one of the major inspirations. Again, I did not know this, like at all. My head hurts. All right, folks, and just thanks for watching. Until next, and like I said, there's a lot more to talk about, but this video is already long enough as it is. As always, thanks for watching, and take care. Until next time, see you.